day, viewers. Welcome back. This is David Oliverio, the Preaching Humanist. That is I. Have you ever wondered how religion keeps their believers in? How they keep the sheep in the fold without leaving? Well, there are many reasons for that. But I got a good one for you. I'm going to talk about a parable from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, otherwise known as the parable of the prodigal son. So I want you to listen to me carefully, now, especially if you're a believer and my fellow atheists as well. The book, the Bible, was constructed in the 2nd, 3rd century with these stories, and you will see there are many subliminal messages geared toward believers and the sheep from the shepherds to keep the flock in. We've heard these subliminal messages for many, many years. So first of all, a parable. Jesus liked to talk in parables to people, right? A parable is a simple story used to illustrate a moral or a spiritual lesson. So we're going to talk about the prodigal son. Prodigal means spending one's resources through a wasteful. Now keep this in mind. Understand these messages that are out there to keep people in. Through a wasteful and extravagant life. So let's start out, and let me tell you the little story of the prodigal son. And remember, this is a way they keep people from leaving the flock. So the story goes on that there was a wealthy father with 2 sons. The younger son wanted his autonomy. Sounds pretty familiar. Sounds like my life a little bit too. The younger son wanted his inheritance from his father. Now keep in mind, the parable is trying to illustrate a spiritual analogy here. We have the natural father and, of course, the spiritual father. So the younger son says, Daddy, give me my inheritance. I want to go live a life of freedom, autonomy, free thinking. I want to form my own opinions. I want to go out into the world on my own. Keep that in mind. So the younger son takes his inheritance, and I'm going to start in verse 13. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey in a distant country. He's leaving. I want freedom. I want to leave my daddy. And there he squandered his estate, his inheritance. Number one implication. Do not leave the daddy. Why? Number one, you will squander your estate with loose living. Loose living is interpreted, and here we have this message we get from believers all the time. It's interpreted immoral living. Number one, when you leave your father, you're going to spend your inheritance. You're going to live out in that real world without the daddy. Number one, you're going to fall into loose living or immoral living. We heard that yesterday in San Antonio with our activism. We hear it so often, all the time. So let's move on. Verse 14. Now, when he, the prodigal son, had spent everything, the implication is you're going to waste your life away and spend everything. A severe famine occurred in that country. That implies a life of nihilism. Don't we hear that often? That if you leave your father, if you leave your inheritance and go out on your own, you will live a life of nihilism. I don't know how many times my buddies and I have to encounter that with believers to explain to them we're not nihilists. We do make meaning and purpose in our life. So severe famine occurred in the country and began to be impoverished. The younger son squandered his wealth on immoral living, right? Out there in the cruel world. And it says right here, that he began to become impoverished. Now, this is very important to understand. The word impoverished means to make poor, exhausting your strength and exhausting your vitality. Oh, my strength and vitality are gone because I went on my own. Or your zest for life. In other words, my pep and my step in life is gone. That's an old term I used to use back in the 60s and 70s. I see young people that are in love. It's so cool to see people that are in love. And you see this little pep in their step. You know that they're happy and they're ready to get married with the love of their life. Now, this story implies this prodigal son lost his zest for life because he squandered his life with loose living and he became impoverished. Verse 15, the story goes on. So he, the prodigal, the free thinker, he left the daddy, went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country. Pretty destitute here. He was desperate. He's starting to hit rock bottom. You get the subliminal message here, my friends? Oh, yeah, it's here. And he, the employer, sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He got so destitute and desperate, he had to take a job feeding pigs. See, here we have it. He once knew the daddy, he let it go, and his life is falling into deeper depression and desperation. This is the implication here if you leave the daddy. Verse 16, he, the prodigal son, would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods that the swine were eating. Pig food. He got pretty low, right? I've told Christians this so many times, especially preachers I talk to. I said, dude, I ain't no prodigal son, and I'm not rolling in a pig pen of nihilism eating pig food. I've stepped up. I'm much happier now. So it says, with the pods and the food that the swine were eating, and no one was giving anything to him. Now, do you hear this message here, what this story's telling believers? No one's going to give you anything. It's a cruel world out there without the Father, because he is the one that supplies all your needs. You can't make it out that hard, arduous life without the daddy. Oh, yes, we can. Let's see what the story goes on to say. Verse 17, but he came to his senses. Isn't that what religion does? I hear it all the time. I don't know where I was. I can't remember. I talked to so many people. A clerk somewhere, it might have been the driver's license, vehicle registration place, whatever. And we got talking like I do with people. And I noticed a big Jesus cross she was wearing. We got talking. She was very friendly. And she told me, oh, David, you'll go back. You will go back. You'll come to your senses. I said, I ain't going back. So here is a story constructed to get people to think, I got to go back to my daddy because I can't make it out here. So it says here, he came to his senses. He said, how many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread? Their lives are better than mine. But I am dying here with hunger. Now, you see this message. You see that has been preached for years and years in our very Christian culture. And you can see why many believers are afraid to leave. This is a very important parable for Christianity. And not only this parable, there are other parables in this chapter of Luke 15 and other Gospels. They talk about the lost coin, the lost sheep. You're lost, but you will be found if you come back to the Father. That is the entire gospel message. So he says in verse 18, I will get up and go back to my daddy. That's where I'll be taken care of because I tried it out there in the cruel world. I can't make it. And I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, yada, yada, yada. We hear it all the time. So here we have subliminal messages out there all the time that you can't leave. This is one way that Christianity keeps people in. And you know what I'll tell believers all the time. Oh, no. Not living in a pig pen. I've stepped up and I've become a much better and a much happier person. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. David Oliverio, the Preaching Humanist, and we will continue this discussion with the guys. They're coming in here shortly. With me, as usual, Andrew and Eric.
Hello, y'all. Howdy.
So are you guys still full from the pasta meal that Christine made you guys last night?
It was delicious. I'm going to say now, for a completely vegan meal, which I've never had before, it was delicious.
Yeah, that's right. That
was great.
Yeah, vegan, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Christine made a real big pile of pasta, and I brought the whole team over. So we went to San Antonio, the Alamo yesterday for our regular activism. So I thought I'd treat the guys, and we had, 5 of us all in there with Christine, 6 of us. Oh, and 7, my cat, Beatrix.
Yeah, can't leave Beatrix out.
Beatrix is always there. She's so fun. I love my little girl. And we had some good talks and all. So I just wanted to reward you guys and just tell you how much I appreciate you with a good pasta meal that Christine made for you. So I do want to talk about San Antonio activism before we get into the topic.
Oh, yeah. So you guys hear that, right? You know, if you come out and help us, you do the Ask an Atheist out on the street, you might get some pasta out of the deal.
Can I have to ask my sweetie pie? She cooks it all, But I did the dishes, So before we get into the topic, I want to let you guys talk about how Christianity and religion keeps people in. And there's so many different ways. I do want to talk briefly about my buddy over here. To my left, your right, Andrew. Andrew's been with me for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, time flies.
Oh, yeah. You've been my right-hand guy. We've had some great times together doing all kinds of activism that you could imagine, right? So Andrew's going to take a little trip, and he's going to be gone for a little bit, but you'll be back. So Andrew's going to tell you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no big deal. I just have some... I got to go to Colorado. I got some medical health issues I thought were resolved, but then it looks like not. You know, they weren't so resolved after all. So I need to go back up there and take care of that. I'm not quite sure how long it'll take. Hopefully, just a few months, and I would like to be back in Texas by next summer at the latest.
Okay.
But I'm going to look for opportunities to maybe do stuff up there too. Get some stuff on camera that maybe you guys can use while I'm there.
Yeah, well, we're going to definitely stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
When, Eric, you may not know this, but when Andrew was gone last year, you were gone up in Colorado.
About 9 months.
9 months. We stayed in touch. We probably talked once a week on the phone, almost once a week, didn't we?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew's kind of been my behind-the-scene advisor to keep me on the straight and narrow because I get a little bit sometimes. I want to make sure and check with the other people around. That's why teamwork's always good, right?
Yeah,
it's just so important to have different people.
Yeah, I remember because when I met you at the Austin Oasis thing, and then you were telling me, my friend Andrew is in Colorado. He's going to be coming back. He's going to be joining us soon. Yeah. You know, so and it's been definitely, it has raised our level of our game having Andrew around.
Man.
I appreciate it.
You're going to be so missed, Andrew. We'll get all sentimental. But we will keep in touch. You'll be back.
Definitely.
And we have all this fancy technology here at the ACA, right? Maybe we can do some, what is it, Skype?
Oh, yeah. Like I've seen some of the other shows do that. Maybe we could figure out how to work that out, too.
Great. Let's talk about the Alamo because we've got limited time today. Okay. And then I want to talk about the topic and let you guys give 2 cents worth on how Christianity keeps people in. So yesterday, we, as usual, we go out with our signs, atheist signs. We went to the Alamo our second time, and man, what a day. We must have talked to, I don't know, how many dozens and dozens of people.
We talked to at least a couple dozen people for sure, and had some interactions with some street preachers. One who is a very vitriolic, hateful, spewing hate and division, as people walk by. And I don't think in fact, I would be willing to bet he did not expect another group or anybody to show up to counter the hateful things that he was saying, but we felt compelled to do so. And it was interesting, we asked him questions that he just didn't have any answers to. And he, of course, everything he said was always, we were sinners. And one of the things that he kept saying was, God hates you. And he wasn't just talking to us, although he did tell us God hated us. Yeah. He was talking to people walking by on the street and telling them that God hates you. And then within the sign he was wearing, because he was wearing a placard that had a bunch of different Bible quotes, it said...
Didn't even really have quotes. It was just...
Right. Well, what it was telling you everything that you were going to hell for. So you do these things, you're going to hell. So he was telling everybody that God hated them as they walked by. And within that placard he was wearing, it also said that if you show hate, you're going to hell.
Wow.
And so he didn't get the irony of that, though, when we pointed it out to him. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, that guy was almost not even worth our time because he kind of defeated himself. I mean, even fellow Christians who saw him probably thought, that guy's off the deep end.
Well, they did because there were several of them. There were people, I don't know that there was people standing there listening to him until we got there. Everybody was just walking past him. And then when we got there and started countering his
speech, a crowd started showing up.
A crowd showed up, and then whether I didn't engage these people who said these things, but there were people standing there who were saying things to the street preacher, such as, you're doing it wrong. You need to be nice. What you're saying is not Christian, and those types of things. I mean, they could have been Christians, or they could have been atheists, or, Hindus or whoever. But they obviously recognized that, the things he was saying were, like I said, it was just vitriolic. It was hateful. It was divisive. And even for himself, he was saying things against. I've read the Bible, and I asked him, had he read the actual Bible? Has he read the Bible? He would not answer the question, which makes me think he has not read the Bible. And the Bible very clearly states some things that will go against everything he was saying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we asked him a bunch of questions that he clearly hadn't thought of or couldn't answer, and so of course he would just evade it and jump to one of his shouting points. But what was fascinating to me is on his placard, amongst the various things that are worth going to hell for, it was very interesting. One of them stood out to me. It was debate. Debate is worth going to hell for. Like, well, how convenient.
Right.
You just have to listen to me spew my nonsense at you. But if you debate me, if you don't just swallow it whole unquestioningly, well, that's worth going to hell for. Yeah. And that's,
Well, we didn't encounter many people like that, right? Because most of the Christians that we had talked to we got the love bombs. There's Matthew. Matthew went with us yesterday. We got the love bombs, the sweetheart Christians that come and try to, show us love like we don't know what love is, But we had a lot of good interviews. So we had our camera set up. We had a little microphone. I hope it picked up the audio. We'll find out. But we had lots of good interviews and talks. Plus, the other good thing about what we do is always a win-win situation, right? Because not only are we challenging believers with friendly dialogue, asking them questions, how they know and so forth, we're also encouraging other free thinkers and atheists and agnostics from the San Antonio area and other people that are atheists. Like, wow, we want to do this. How do you do this?
Yeah. Nick, who was head of FACT, Free Thinkers Association of Central Texas, and then Andy, who is a member of some atheist and free thinker groups in San Antonio as well. In fact, Andy
Hector
stayed the whole time. He stayed the whole time.
Yeah.
He didn't leave till we left. And Hector Garcia,
the author, who we're going to have on our show pretty soon.
It was very nice to see him out there. It was good to meet him. That's the first time I ever met him. But, I want to real quickly say something because Matthew walked in and he told me something yesterday that happened with him when he was having that debate with the female shouting, biblical
she was
nonsense.
preaching away.
And her husband, him and Matthew got to having a discussion, and they were discussing, and you said that how they, the Christians wanted to give us hugs and, and the nicey nice, whatever. And Matthew was talking to this guy. And of course, Matthew's intelligent and he can speak very well. And the guy couldn't persuade Matthew, so he told Matthew, well, let's just hug. And Matthew's like, no, I'm not going to hug you. I don't want to hug you. You're not going to try to end this with a hug and then say that now we're equal in our debate and now, and leave it at that. He said, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let you do that.
Well, we also had we had all kinds of Christians out there. We had the deep philosophical Christian physicist guy, I think he was Asian. He was from India. Strong Christian, but he was a physicist. But he was going to prove to me that God existed through physics and give me 15 minutes to explain it
I didn't hear that conversation because I was kind of messing, around trying to make sure we had a good shot in the camera and whatnot. I wish I would have heard that. I didn't realize, so you just said that. I didn't realize he was telling you that. That's the first I heard.
Well, that's when Manoj came over and he went into depth with him. And me, I don't have any patience for that. I want a demonstration. This is a magical supernatural
Well, you know what? I tell you, I wish if he could prove it through physics, he would be a very famous man.
That's a good point to bring up. I forgot to bring that up.
Guys, I got to take out something from my little money clip. I forgot to tell you this. You're going to love this.
Okay.
Maybe this coming Saturday, we found our place of activism. I did an episode a few weeks ago on my atheist encounters and activism and the journeys of my atheist activism. I talked about my new friend Janet, the lady I met at the laundromat a few weeks ago. I gave her homework to read Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 3 and all that stuff. She had her Bible open ready for me this morning when I brought our dryers out. And I'm too lazy. and maybe too poor to get it fixed. So I go down to the laundromat. But I love it because I can meet people and talk to them. So she had her Bible open, all ready to give me evidence God exists and all this stuff. Sweetheart of a lady. But she said, David, I got my pastor's name and number down here, and he wants you to call him. He's going, and I said, okay, this is going to be fun. And he's going to prove to you that God exists. So I'm going to call him tomorrow, and I'm hoping to have some friendly dialogue, and maybe we'll bring the camera and we'll do an interview in his church. So
nice.
I'll talk to you about it later. Okay. So I got his name and all. Pastor, I'm not going to say his name. But we always look for opportunities like this, and Christians are very strong about that. They want to somehow prove to us that we've never heard these arguments before.
Well, except then when you tell them that the burden of proof is on them, and I heard Andrew ask this question, and maybe even Matthew a couple of times, both of them did, saying, prove it. And then they say, well, why do I have to prove it? You're the one making the claim. The burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Of course, none of them can. No. It was amazing to me yesterday how many, because I asked intentionally every single person who we talked to, have you read the Bible? And so many of them, were telling us all about how great the Bible is, and, how it's a great book to learn from, and how to follow, your life, to model it, what the Bible says. And then I asked them, have you read the Bible? Not one of them said they read it. In fact, except for the street preacher who wouldn't answer the question, every single one of them said no. None of them had read it.
Right.
The whole thing, anyway, yeah.
Okay, real quick, I know we're taking more time on this, but this is really good. Andrew, tell the viewers about the parade. Big Christian parade there, and then we're going to get into the topic.
Yeah, it caught us by surprise. We weren't expecting it. There was some, I don't know, I think it was Catholic, some sort of...
no, they were evangelical.
Oh, they were evangelical?
They were Protestant.
Okay, because there was a lot of stuff in Spanish, and I guess I just assumed Catholic from that. No, but
I know, trust me. They were Protestant.
All right. Well, they had this whole procession parade thing with lots of kids and cars and signs that, pushing their crap, right? And just at the spur of the moment, I thought, because David was already interviewing somebody, and I'm like, look at this, and I rushed over there, and I wanted to test out something I've been wanting to try for a while. When they say Jesus loves you, I come back with, okay, why can't he tell me himself? Why doesn't he need you to tell me? Is he shy? Why is your God so shy? He needs you to tell me, And so I might have even overdone it, because as each car was going by, and they're like, Jesus loves you. Yeah, they were driving by slowly, like a parade procession. And so Matthew got it on video, and David joined, and Eric, I think, joined a little bit later.
Well, no, I was over there taking pictures and stuff,
trying to get some pictures.
Yeah, trying to get some video and stuff.
Yeah, but David went out there when he was done with his other interview and joined me, because it ate up a full 30, 40 minutes, I think. And, so hopefully the video for that turned out well. It's just and I took 2 of the signs, and I think the others brought some signs over there, and
all we heard was they were in the vehicles driving by. We were on the sidewalk, right? This is right in front of the Alamo in San Antonio. We had our atheist signs, and as the cars drove by slowly, each individual in the cars just smiled. God loves you. Jesus loves you. I'm praying for you. And we said, how do you know? How do you know? He lives in my heart. How do you know? He lives in my
convenient.
mind. Yeah, how convenient. Jesus loves you, and he lives in my heart. That's it. Yeah.
And the thing, that parade, and then of course you have the preachers, out there, spouting bullshit crap. And then so we had a few people. The guy who you and Manoj were speaking to had the Steelers jacket on, who asked the question of, well, why are you out here? Why do you think you need to come out here and do this? Why can't you, just let people do what they want to do, and so of course our absolute correct comeback is that, if Christians can do it or anybody else can do it, then we also can do it. And we feel the need to counter the vitriol and the hatred and the divisiveness and all these other things that these people preach. And like the people in the parade, they weren't saying the things that the guy standing on the corner was saying.
Right.
But they all get it from the same book.
Oh, sure.
It all comes from the same book. So I absolutely feel the need, and I know you guys do too.
Yeah, of course.
To not let them just have free reign.
Christian supremacy must end. Equal country, they ask me all the time. They ask us, why are you doing this? I say, look at the parade. They can do it. We can do it. They're out here preaching. We should be out here with our signs. It's equality. That's what we fight for. Okay, guys, let's get into the topic. We got about 30 minutes. So I just got finished giving a message on using the prodigal son parable from Jesus in Luke 15. This is one of the many ways that Christianity and many other religions use to send their subliminal messages out to the flock to keep them in. One way they keep their flock in. And there's so many different other ways. But if you heard that message, you saw me kind of dissect and go over each little verse in that parable and how the younger son took his inheritance, went away from the daddy, right? The type and shadow of a heavenly father, and he couldn't make it in the hard world. He wasted everything on loose, immoral living. This is what's going to happen to you when you leave the father. You can't make it out there. You're going to be nihilist and miserable and empty and poor and hungry, living with pigs, and you have to go back to daddy. And that's a subliminal message. That is one of the main things that keeps Christians from questioning and doubting, ever thinking about becoming an atheist like us. But the fact is, most of us have stepped up and become better people, leaving that. So you guys have a lot more to add too. So we've got some time. What you guys got on this topic here?
Well, it's funny, the whole concept that when you leave that faith, that belief, that suddenly you'll become just this immoral, just live this horrible lifestyle and engage in all this horrible behavior and waste all your money and stuff. The funny thing is, I don't know about you guys, but my experience was the exact opposite. It's kind of like when I believed in God, it's almost like it gives you this imaginary parachute where you can be more reckless and more nihilistic because of course, obviously, part of it was just that I was younger, and when you're young, you engage in risky behavior more. But I engaged in a lot more risky, self-destructive behavior when I was a Christian than I ever have since I became an atheist. And part of it was that, I don't know what I was thinking, but part of it was that I figured, hey, God's going to protect me, or if I do die, then if I get to go to heaven anyway because I believe in God, so why not engage in risky behavior, I abused myself with all kinds of drugs and alcohol, I engaged in kind of the show Jackass kind of behavior with some of my buddies that we could have killed ourselves. We were so silly. I did stuff like that when I believed in God, and I remember shoplifting when I was a Christian and thinking, well, I can just ask God for forgiveness. So when I became an atheist, I realized, okay, that there is no actual parachute there. I have to be responsible now. If I die, that's it. I better be careful. This world is the only one we know we have. I better try and do good in this world, because we're not going to get a second chance. That's when I became more moral. That's when I was the opposite of the prodigal son.
Wasn't that what that Jewish, really nice older Jewish gentleman was talking to us about? Was it you or was it you?
It was you. Me and you, yeah.
Do you remember what he was talking about? How he was trying to say that a lot of people need that religion.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like the prodigal son.
That was his whole point. So he was a Jewish fella, but he wasn't a practicing Jew, although he did pray, and he said certain things that, I don't disagree with him because you do these things in life. So he said he would use prayer with his clients. If they wanted to pray, he would pray with them because that's what he needed to do for his business, But he said that he thought that the world, when civilization first began, we needed religion as a construct, how to behave morally and how to survive and how to prosper. I don't completely disagree with that concept. Maybe we did. I don't know, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. Maybe we needed something of that nature, but we've moved so far beyond that, we don't need that anymore. Obviously, Andrew just gave his example. I could give a lot of the same examples. I'm absolutely a better person and a happier, more content and centered person without all that fairy tale belief. I can actually remember so I was, again, even though I had questions, I guess, I was trying to be a Christian and I got, saved, I guess. It was the simplest saving I've ever experienced in my life. They just said I had to say this prayer with them.
Well, the born again experience.
Yeah, and then I was saved. And they told me, what they told me is that from this point forward, you can never get underneath God's love, meaning nothing, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to heaven. And they told me that, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. I mean, literally, I didn't act out and do anything about it, but I thought, that's great. I could do anything against the law. I could do any bad thing to another person. I could do anything knowing that if I die immediately after that without, like I get into a car wreck or whatever, I'm still going to heaven no matter any bad thing I do. Yeah. And I was already a grown man, and I wasn't about to go out and do any of those things because I had already had a sense of what was good for society is good for me. So so I didn't do any of those things. But that kind of a thinking, I think it does. It drives people to do things that they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah, I guess you could get into the differences in Christianity doctrine. You mentioned pretty much the doctrine of once saved, always saved, or Calvinism, which is Ephesians chapter 1, that if you're born again and saved, you can never really leave. Totally contrary to the message I did a few weeks ago from Hebrews chapter 6. Remember, those who once had light and have fallen away. Yeah. So there's a major contradiction.
But, they use the parable, and the parable that you gave the example of the prodigal son, it's obviously, the father is God, the son can be anybody, but the father represents God. And so it's saying don't get away from God. Don't move away from God. Don't try to be on your own. You can't do it on your own. You can't do it without God. That's the whole point of the parable.
That's it.
You can't do it without God. And it's false. It's a lie. Yes. They're lying. It's been a lie that's been going on since for 2,000 years, since the Bible's been in existence. So, and they do. It's the way they get you. It's the way they get you. And they get you as a child. It was very interesting because I asked this same question of some other people about, when were you introduced to Christianity? And there was always, I was about this tall, so when they're kids. So they get you when you're a kid. Because when you're a kid, who do you rely on? You rely on your mother, your father. These are the people who you learn from and who you believe and trust. And so they're teaching you these things, and you just immediately take them as fact, and they're hoping that you're not going to question as you get older. And if they just hammer this into you from the time you're just old enough to listen, you are not going to question. And most people don't, but if people did, they would find that it's a much better life away from that. And you can be actually a better person away from that.
You definitely can. You definitely can. Yeah. So I've mentioned about that story in the prodigal son. The word impoverished was mentioned. I use the New American Standard Bible. But it's interesting what impoverished means: to make poor, exhausting one's strength and vitality or zest for life, or the old pep in your step. So again, here it is for certain people that believe this stuff. If I leave this, I'm going to lose my zest for life, my pep in my step. It's a term we used to use in the 70s. I don't know if they still use it today. But my vitality, my energy, my strength, and so forth. In other words, you just can't make it without God. So what other ways, guys, do these religions use, as far as not just Christianity, but other religions, use out there to keep the sheep in? What other ways do you think that they use to keep people in?
Well, kind of like the guy with the sign. They classify debate or questioning itself as its own kind of sin. It's like just to merely ask the questions, to merely doubt, is itself sinful and treacherous in some way. That's the hallmark of cults. That's
absolutely.
And religions are just popular cults.
Yeah, I mean, Christianity was considered a cult when it was coming up. Sure, in the beginning, it's just it's a cult that survived, and it overcame the obstacles that were against it, and so it became. I mean, look at Scientology. I mean, and for a large part, it's still considered a cult, even by other religions, absolutely. But our government has given it the A-OK that it can be a religion, and so now they have all the tax exemptions and everything else that all other religions get. But I mean, I haven't read that much about Scientology. I don't even know if they have a single book, but I know that they believe some crazy stuff, man.
Yeah,
I mean, aliens and people being spewed out of volcanoes and. Yeah. Just nuts.
Yeah, it is. It is. And most Christians would agree to that, because I've got Christian clients. They're great people. And we will actually agree and make fun of some of the other religions. I mean, they'll make fun of other religions. With me, their atheist client, our personal trainer.
But then, you got to, I love to ask them then, well, what about your religion, Christians? What about the talking donkey? What about the talking snake? What about not just Jesus, because Jesus wasn't the only person raised from the dead in the Bible. What about raising people up from the dead?
Lazarus.
The dead rising out of their graves and walking. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about the crazy stuff, the nonsense that it says. So
absolutely.
So I understand why people thought it was a cult. Yeah. I still think it's a cult.
Yeah. Well, I've heard a fellow atheist call it a death cult or a blood cult. That's
I was just
plausible.
saying that yesterday to someone.
Yeah. What about fear? Do you think fear is something that Christianity and other religions use to keep the sheep in?
Oh, of course.
Fear of the unknown, fear of anything different.
Fear of hell. Fear of hell, that's it,
Definitely. And then all the progressive Christians, that's a tricky one for me. I know we've discussed that a lot through the years, Andrew, why my progressive Christians continue to hold on. It's definitely not for the fear of hell. We've talked about that. There are many other reasons why they hold on to it. And we've talked about this so many times. It's the community, obviously. But fear...
And some of them fear that they've bought into the whole morality myth, and maybe they fear they would lose their moral compass if they didn't believe in a higher power.
Yeah.
That is true. Now, although a lot of Christians would agree with us, and I've pressed them over and over again, the riddle of obligation... And you guys have heard me say the same stuff with Christians over and over again. Would your morality collapse if God being the grounds for this morality were absent? Would you still be a good person? In fact, my sweet little friend at the laundromat again this morning, Janet, and she was all ready for me with her Bible open because I gave her homework, Romans chapter 1. And she went over that with me again. She just cannot accept the fact that I was once a Christian preacher. And I'm headed for hell. She just can't. Even though she admits that we do have so many similarities. We were talking about politics and equality for all and ending racism. We vote the same. We believe in all these things the same. But for her, but God, only God has rescued her from a life of poverty and the same things I hear all the time. Yeah. But here, I was looking at a sweetheart of a lady, and I'll see Janet again next week. After I talk to her, well, maybe we get to talk to her pastor next Saturday in the church and do an interview. But I'm looking at a woman who is a really sweet lady, but she is eaten up with fear. She's completely sold into this prodigal son type thing. That if she left the daddy, her life would be like the prodigal son. Yeah. Definitely.
It is based in fear, not just this, religion, it's all of them. There's something within them. I mean, you look at Islam, and all the things that, that says, it's just that, crazy as well and dangerous, not just to society as a whole, but it's dangerous to individuals as individuals. The hell, the morality question, can you be moral? We've asked that question of several people yesterday. And almost always they don't want to answer it. But the Jewish guy, gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Yeah. He was such a nice guy. When I asked him that question, he said, no, of course. I think that we could be good without these, things that come from the Bible. We don't need them. If we gave it up, I could still be a good person, So, but not a lot of people, I really wonder, do they really think they can't be a good person? Even if they were to answer us that in the positive. Yes, I can't be a good person without all of these rules, all of this Bible nonsense. I don't know that I believe them. I don't know that even they believe that themselves, Do they really think they would go out and rape and murder and pillage if they decided that, they were not going to do those?
Some of them do. I've asked them. A lot of people have told me point blank, yes, I would go out and do this stuff.
Well, then they need to be governed by some spiritual daddy in the sky. I don't think, let them people stay in religion. No. We'll take the rest of you, though.
Right. But I don't think that they understand. I think they've just been lied to. And I usually tell them, I think you probably wouldn't. I think you would continue to be a good person. You're just wrong.
And that's what I think.
And you've been lied to.
Yeah, I don't think that they would do that. And most of them absolutely would not do that. They, might become depressed and they might become, those types of things, have some emotional upset, obviously, because that happens, when you get rid of something that you've been pounded over the head with your whole life, Mm-hmm. So, but no, I don't believe that they would go out and do all the bad things that people are told they would do without God.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yep.
anything else, guys, on the topic? Any other points you want to bring up? How Christianity and religion keep their flock in?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. Those are the major ways they do it. The fear of the fear of social isolation, obviously is also part of it, and that's what the atheist community is here for, and other secular groups so that they can't use that excuse that you'll be cast out of the community. You won't have anywhere to go if you don't have your church, whereas atheists 200 years ago, they could literally say that. If you were doubting or had questions 200 years ago, you really did have no place to go, but now you do.
Andrew, I got to bring one more thing up before we close here.
I have something too.
No, go ahead. You go. Andrew, go ahead. You go first. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I just wanted to... I thought of a parable of my own.
Okay.
Since we're talking about parables, I guess I could call this the Not So Prodigal Son parable. Let's say we've got the Not So Prodigal Son. He's grown up. He's got his own place. And a couple strangers knock on his door. And they tell him, hey, we are here on behalf of your dad. And we want you to know that your dad loves you and wants a relationship with you. Not So Prodigal Son says, oh, well, actually, I was just talking to my dad the other day on the phone. We got that covered. And they're like, no, actually, your real dad, that's not your real dad. It's your real dad who's never spoken to you all these years, but we want you to know he loves you and he wants a relationship with you.
That's good.
Not So Prodigal Son says, well, okay, why does he need you guys to tell me this? Is he in a wheelchair? Is he quadriplegic? No. Is he in jail? No. Does he have some sort of autoimmune disease like John Travolta in The Boy in the Bubble and he can't have human contact? No. In fact, he's the smartest person who ever lived. He's the wisest person and the most powerful person who's ever lived. And the Not So Prodigal Son says, okay, well, then that gives him even less excuse to come talk to me himself. Why does he need you guys to do this? And, okay, maybe we can, maybe he's jet-setting around the world since he's so powerful. Maybe he's busy, but he could always Skype in or have a video chat. Can he do that? And they're, no, sorry, he can't do that. But we brought a book. He's got this big book for you that tells you all about how much he loves you and wants a relationship with you. Oh, okay. Did he write this book? Well, not really, but he kind of dictated it to some other people who then passed it along to other people who passed it along to other people who passed it along to us. And the Not So Prodigal Son is obviously getting a little suspicious here. This doesn't make any sense. He tells the gentleman, okay, why do I have any reason to believe this? You're not really selling me on this too well. And they say, well, you just have to trust us. And you just have to, if you trust us and believe that we're telling you the truth, eventually your dad will talk to you. Oh, he'll talk to me in person like you guys are? No, he'll just kind of like talk to you telepathically. And so the Not So Prodigal Son says, okay, you guys aren't making any sense. So the two strangers at his door, they kind of hem and haw a little bit. And then they say, well, you know what? You can prove to your dad that you trust us and that you want a relationship with him if you just give him 10% or more of your income. And, you can give it to us and we'll pass it along to him. So by this point, the Not So Prodigal Son has realized that this is clearly a con, clearly a scam. And not only is it a scam, it's the most pathetically transparent scam, full of holes that you could drive a pickup truck through. And so he tells the two gentlemen, no thanks. In fact, you can go F yourselves. He slams the door in their faces, and the Not So Prodigal Son lives happily ever after. The end.
Wow.
Now that's a parable of truth.
That is pretty good. Andrew, do not leave town. You're staying after that. Now, you ought to put that in writing. I would like to have that in writing.
Yeah, that's a good
Hey, we got it on audio. We can do that.
Yeah, there you go.
It'll live forever on YouTube.
I love that. I love that. It was great. Did you want to say anything else? Because I'm going to close with one little remark about yesterday. So.
Well, and speaking of yesterday, just every time we go out, when I originally met David, I met him. I was looking to become involved in something in a political way, and I met David at the Austin Humanist thing, whatever.
Humanist community.
And so I told him, yeah, man, I introduced myself to him, and I'm looking to get active. And, well, he said, well, there's this lady, and she's very political. Maybe you can get involved with her. But then I got to know David more, and I was hesitant initially to go out and do these things. I'd never done them before. But now, every time we go out and do this, it makes me feel the need to continue and to go out and do it again, because every single time we go out there, I recognize more and more just how harmful this is. When you have these people standing out there telling people they're flawed and they're sinful, going to hell from the time they're born, and there's no way to get over that except accepting this fairy tale and then give me 10% of your money, on top of that, But I mean, so it's just, and it's so many people that we talk to. I actually do believe that we reach people, if not in a complete, they're going to, get rid of Christianity and move towards, fact and reason, but in a ways of, making them think about some of the really bad things that are, said and done because of Christianity and due to Christianity. So, I mean, I don't think that what we're doing is fruitless. I think that we are actually maybe reaching some people on some different levels.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, I can only hope that other groups of atheists will do this. And, in fact, we had a couple of them want us, I told you, that want us to come and do, they want me to come speak, and we can do a seminar. You guys go with me.
And as always, y'all, Atheist Community Austin welcomes all of y'all. I mean, everybody, we're creating a community for fellow atheists, free thinkers, so we're going to continue to grow this, and, everybody here is welcome, and we're not going to call you a sinner.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something we got to do here at the ACA is we've got all the different activists, all different personalities, techniques, different shows from different areas, but we all agree on a few major things, right? We do want to see this secular community built, right? And we do want to help and reach out and help people in everywhere, every facet. There's so many different ways to do it. We all share that same passion. And we do want to collaborate with people on the other shows, build them up, have them on the show. I'm going to try to have some board members come on for guests. I guess when you're going to be gone, we're going to have more people fill in your spot too.
So the good thing is now we have them. Unlike 4 years ago, now we have them.
Yeah, it was just you and me back then. It used to be me and my buddy Daniel before I met Mark in his kitchen with his cat crawling all over me with his little laptop computer. He's a physicist, so he said, "Go ahead, push that button, David. I got to go do my work in the computer." I was all alone with this little camera, and I'd started going at it. It was about 4 or 5 years ago.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. But anyway, real quick, I want to end. Do you remember, I can't remember, we talked to so many people yesterday. If it was you, Andrew, or you, Eric, with me, we talked to the Baptist married couple, the preacher and his wife, at the very end, when I told this young preacher, he must have been in his 20s or 30s, about my brother's death and how he was a strong Christian. Did you remember?
That was priceless.
I've never heard this before. And I said, well, why did God allow him to die? He was below, even though Psalm 91 says, with long life, I will satisfy you. He was 61, which is my age now, 2 years ago. He was 61 when he died. According to stats and data, the average life expectancy of American male is about 76. Yeah. He died at 61. That's long life. That's below average. All the Christians prayed and believed God. I quoted the scriptures to him about answering prayer and healing in the name of Jesus. And remember what his answer was? He said, well, he was healed. I said, no, he was not healed. He died. He ceases to exist. And what did he say?
He's in heaven with God now.
That was his healing. Yeah. There's his answer. Yeah. When your brother's in heaven with God, looking down and you praying for you.
It's like,
and that was the healing.
Heads you win, tails you win.
Right. And this is what we deal with. But there's so many people on the out. Remember, we had a couple women that came up last time that have doubts. We had others that are really questioning. You remember the couple?
We had the mother-daughter who came up.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
the daughter was a very intelligent, very questioning, and she called her mother over, and her mother says she was a Christian, but a lot of the same things that a lot of Christians, probably most Christians, has never read the Bible.
Yeah.
She still believes things that the Bible is completely against, and actually says, are wrong. She, she was just one of those flighty, I believe in the fluffy fairy tale of heaven. That's what her thing was.
But she believed in hell. She admitted
she did.
her daughter.
She believed in hell, but she named her dog Lucifer. What was it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, those two were interesting. Yeah.
But,
you meet all kinds.
Yeah, they are.
Really
But
fun. So entertaining.
One thing, though, when Andrew and Manoj were having that conversation with the gentleman, I walked over to see what was being said.
The philosophical, deep thinker guy?
No, it was the guy who had on the shirt. He had his 2 sons with him. He had
that guy.
And so he wanted to turn everything into a political discussion, which I'm fine to do that with. And so we started talking about some things. And this is my point, is about maybe making some headway with some people. And that we talked about a couple of different things, but one thing that we did talk about, so I asked him, I said, so you believe abortion is wrong and it's sin? And absolutely. He just, yes. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to give you that. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But let's say that, let's say that it is. And now let's say we make abortion illegal again. It's just 100% completely legal, which is essentially what Christians want to do. A woman can't get an abortion if her life is in danger because of the pregnancy, or if the child's, even the, unborn child's life is somehow endangered.
Some of them will say they'll make exceptions for that.
Some of them will.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, so let me ask you this. I said, so now, who gets to make that decision for that woman? Who is it? Now, let's talk about reality here. In power, in America, it's mostly men, and it's mostly white men. So we're going to have to create a panel. They're going to have to create a panel. Who's going to sit on that panel? Well, it's going to be men, and it's going to be mostly white men. And so you're going to have a panel of men making decisions for a woman about her health when her life is really actually in danger. And I asked him, I said, do you think that might be the way that might go? And he kind of was quiet for a second, and he said, yeah, it probably would. And I said, do you think that is correct? Do you think that's morally correct for the woman? And do you think that's morally correct for society as a whole? And he actually stopped, and he thought for a minute, and he said, no, probably not. So in those ways, I think that maybe we're just making people think.
Well, that's what we want to do, isn't it? We just want...
Yeah, and I like how he was an example of, and I love when this happens, when someone comes up to us guns a-blazing, ready to just give us crap, right? And by the time they walk away, they're like, oh, okay, all right. Okay, cool. See you guys later. All right.
Yeah.
I love it when we can de-escalate it and get them to see that we have some common ground and that we're not, we're not these evil monsters, and
we're not baby eaters.
Right. So he tried to turn it into this big political thing, and so after you guys discussed that, I tried to pull it back away from religion, just back towards he's the one making
politics towards religion. Yeah.
I mean, back from politics to religion. That hey, he's making a claim. We're not making any claim. You're making a claim. And by that point, he was already, he already realized that we weren't harming anybody. He understood why we were there, and so
he was one of the ones who asked us, "Well, why are you out here? What makes you think you can come out here and say these things, or present yourself out here and say these things?" And we pointed out, hey, the parade just went by. It was 30 cars of Christians with signs and a whole bunch of other mess. So we have that right. It's in the Constitution. One thing he did say, though, that really surprised me, I think it was him, is that he said that, well, maybe the Constitution needs to be changed.
Ooh.
Really? And I thought, how dangerous is that? And it may not have been him, but one of the people said that we were speaking with, maybe it's time the Constitution needs to be changed. And he was specifically talking about free speech rights.
Oh, really?
And because we were out there countering the Christian, baloney, that scares me. That's why I think this is all and it is all tied to politics, and why I try to be active and help.
Yeah, you are.
In that manner. Politics is wrapped up in this, and we got to get it out of our politics and keep it out of our politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that reminds me, something I told a couple of Christians yesterday when they ask us, when they act like it's, one person even pointed to one of our signs, said, that offends me. And others would act like, it was just kind of like it was just inherently offensive that we were even there, that we were even making our argument. And I pointed out to a couple of them, hey, if you're a devout Christian and you want to save souls, you should be glad we're out here. We're giving you that opportunity. We're giving you that opportunity to have the discussion. If your beliefs are strong enough to withstand scrutiny, you should be glad we're giving you that scrutiny. Yeah. That shouldn't be something you should be afraid of or offended by. doesn't God want you to be fishers of men? Here we are. Come fish us.
There's some fish.
I remember you telling that person that.
That was great.
That was great. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, guys, we got to go. I'm looking at my clock, and we've got our buddies coming up with the big shows. Full day here at the Atheist
Talk
Community
Heathen is
Vault.
next, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Talk Heathen, and the two big
Atheist
shows.
Experience
Atheist
is
Experience.
later in the day, but yeah.
But the viewers right now don't care because this isn't live.
This is not live. You're seeing this sometime.
You're seeing this in the
future.
The future.
In the future. Yeah.
One thing I just want to say, just y'all read the Bible. To you Christians out there who might be seeing this, who might think we're full of crap. Read the Bible. Read it. Start at the beginning and read it to the end. You're not going to understand a lot of it.
You're going to be bored out of your mind.
It's going to get boring, but don't stop. Just read it. Read the stories and read what they say, and then do some more research on your own. Don't go necessarily to your preacher because you already know what he's going to say. Yeah. Do your own research. Read other books that are written about the Bible, the things that the Bible says. There's a million books out there about that, but please read the Bible. You're going along with all this stuff that you're being told that other people are telling you, and you're not even reading the book that it's based on. Y'all have got to read that book. Yeah. Please, just read the book.
And ask yourself, does this make any logical sense? Is it moral? Is it good? And you don't need it. So, all right, we got to go, guys. So y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.
Take care.
Bye.